After our victory over the Romans at the Battle of the Trebia River, we spent the winter in the Po River area receiving troops and supplies from the Gauls, with many of whose tribes we forged alliances. At the arrival of spring in 217 BC, I decided to continue the march south, towards the heart of Italy. To do this we had to cross the Apennine mountain range. Two Roman armies commanded by new consuls defended the two easiest routes through the mountains, so I chose a more difficult but unprotected route. We crossed the mountains and entered the Arno Valley, which was full of water and swamps from the spring thaw. For days of exhausting and difficult marching in which our elephants died and I myself fell ill and lost the vision in one eye. Despite the bad conditions, our army finally reached the lands of Etruria. I knew we should avoid engaging both consular armies at the same time, so I decided to lure the nearest one into a battle before they joined together. This was garrisoned in Arretium and was commanded by the consul Gaius Flaminius. That's why we set out to loot and destroy all the towns and villages in the fertile region where we were. Flaminius did not fall into the trap, and not only did he not respond to our offenses, but he decided to follow our army towards the south, at a safe distance. Seeing this, I looked for a suitable place to ambush the Romans and found it following the route that surrounded Lake Trasimene. The time had come to prepare the trap. On June 21st we camped on a hill on the north shore of the lake. During that night I ordered the troops to be deployed on the wooded slopes of the hills that bordered the ancient road on the banks of the Trasimene. In that area, the hills were very close to the lake shore, leaving few open spaces. Our forces were the following: the cavalry composed of Numidian, Iberian and Gaul horsemen for a total of 10,000 men. The bulk of our army was made up of 11,000 Iberian and African veterans, 6,000 skirmishers, and more than 20,000 Gauls determined to avenge their previous defeats at the hands of the Romans. In total almost 50,000 soldiers. Seeing that we were stopping, the Romans set up camp on a plain further west. His army was made up of 2 legions and their allies plus the veterans of the 2 legions who had managed to arrive from Placentia after our victory at Trebia. Their forces were around 25,000 combatants. To the west, in the area closest to the Romans, I placed the Celtic infantry and cavalry. In the center I deployed the Numidian and Iberian cavalry, and in the area closest to our camp the elite African and Iberian infantry. To the east, near the gorge through which the road separated from the lake, our light troops and skirmishers. The darkness made the movement of my men go unnoticed by the Romans, and we managed to place the troops where I wanted. The next morning the Romans set out thinking that we would have broken camp and continued our march south. The thick fog that had arisen prevented them from seeing our men as their long column advanced along the road. When the vanguard of the Roman army reached our light troops, I gave the order to attack. The men, shouting loudly, descended from the slopes of the hills, attacking the surprised Romans. That's when they realized they had walked into an ambush. Our horsemen charged along the entire Roman line, wreaking havoc. The attack was so sudden that the Romans were unable to form an orderly line of battle. Despite the initial surprise, the enemies managed to group together to face ours. The fog gradually dissipated as the fighting intensified. In the center, the battle was especially tough, where we suffered significant casualties. The Gauls fought with utmost ferocity to avenge the defeat they had suffered at the hands of Flaminius in 223. A leader of the Gallic cavalry named Gaius, breaking through the ranks of Triarians who were protecting the consul, killed him with his spear. Despite the death of Flaminius, the Romans continued to fight for their lives, knowing that they were trapped. After 3 hours of fighting, the Romans finally began to flee, having suffered a large number of casualties and knowing they were lost. Many enemies tried to escape and drowned in the lake due to the weight of their armor. Others were massacred, pursued by our cavalry. Only a force of 6,000 men from the Roman vanguard managed to escape, breaking through our lines and taking shelter on a nearby hill. By noon the battle was over and the Romans had lost 15,000 men and the rest were taken prisoners. Our casualties were around 2,000 men. The day after the battle, the 6,000 men who had managed to escape surrendered after being surrounded by our troops. The Allied troops who had fought with the Romans were immediately freed. I told them that our fight was not against them but against Rome and that they could return to their homes in peace. My hope was that, upon returning, many of their cities would decide to break their agreements with Rome and thus weaken their support on the Italian peninsula. This defeat left Rome without one of her field armies. The other consular army, under the command of Gnaeus Geminus, which was initially located on the coasts of the Adriatic Sea, had been advancing westwards with the intention of joining Flaminius and was unaware of the Roman defeat. His cavalry force, consisting of 4,000 men and ahead of the rest of the army, was surprised by our troops. 2,000 died and the rest of him were taken prisoner, so Geminus was forced to retreat with all his infantry to Ariminum. In the weeks following the Battle of Trasimene, our troops continued to advance south through Etruria and later the region of Umbria, plundering and causing as much damage as possible. At the end of July we reached the shores of the Adriatic Sea where I decided to let the army rest and prepare for the next battle.